What we're going to do today is the same thing that we were doing yesterday, not yesterday, sorry, a couple of days ago, where we want to factor this expression, except a couple of days ago, I gave you one of these. I told you what one of these was going to be. This time I'm not going to tell you that. So you're going to have to use some stuff that you know to get it. So let's start by doing what we can. Let's label everything we know here. What can I do with this 10e squared? Where's that going to go? Yeah, that's going to go in the top left box, right? This is the area of the first rectangle. Can I put the 23e anywhere? No, I can't do that because why? Yeah, it's that 23e is going to be this rectangle here and this rectangle here added together, right? So I don't know what the area of each one of those is going to be. All I know is that those two are going to add up to 23e. All right, can I put the 6 anywhere? Yeah, that can go down in the bottom right box, right? All right, so that's all I can do right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the MA method that we learned yesterday to help us figure out what's going to go in these two rectangles here. All right? Now, the first thing I'm going to do this is I'm going to figure out what M and A are going to be for this problem. So I am going to take this expression right here. I'm going to take the first coefficient and the last coefficient. So I'm going to multiply the first coefficient, the one that's multiplied by the e squared, or whatever the variable is squared, and I'm going to multiply it by the constant, the number that's by itself. So that's going to give me m. What's m going to be for this problem? What's 10 times 6? Okay, so m is going to be 60. A, anybody want to guess what a is? It's going to be 23. So a is going to be, let me do that in a different color here. A is going to be just the middle coefficient, or the second coefficient. All right, so what we're looking for here are two numbers that multiply to get 60 and add to get 23. So Alicia says that our two numbers that are going to work here are going to be 3 and 20. And we can check that pretty easily. 3 times 20 is 60. 3 plus 20 is 23. So this works. 3 and 20 are going to be my two numbers. Those are going to be the areas of these two rectangles. Well, at least close. It's not going to be just 3, but it's going to be 3 what? What do you think? 3e. Why? Yeah, they have to add up to 23e, right? We know these two numbers add up to 23 because that's our a. So we're going to say, and it doesn't really matter which one goes where, so I'm going to put the 20e here, and I'm going to put the 3e, I need to write that at the bottom. I'm going to put the 20e here, and I'm going to put the 3e here. And those are going to be the areas of those two rectangles. What can we do next? We can do the rest of the problem now. We have enough information. What can I do? Let's just look at this right here. Just that top row. What's going to be 2? So what we can do with this top row here is figure out what the GCF is, just like we did in the first problems in our opener, right? If we were going to factor just this, we would factor out the GCF. What is the GCF of 10 and 20? Let's see if we can do that without a factor tree. What's the biggest number that goes into both? 10. So since the GCF of 10 and 20 is 10, we're going to have a 10 here. But what else goes there? We need an e there also, right? Because they both have an e in common. So this is going to be a 10e. Basically what I'm doing here is factoring the GCF of just these two rectangles. So then I know that this is going to be 10e times something, and this is going to be 10e times something, and I can figure out what it is I multiply by 10e to get 10e squared. What is that going to be? 1e, right? Yeah, we could put 1E or you could just put E. Can you guys read that? So it's going to be 1E or you could just put E, as Aaron said, because the 1 can just drop off. We don't need that. And then what do I multiply by 10E to get 20E? 2, right? Well, now if I go down here into these two rectangles, what's the width of this rectangle going to be?
E.
Yeah, E or 1E. I'm going to keep the 1 there, but you don't need to. And what's the width of this rectangle going to be? That's going to be 2. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say the area of this rectangle, since the width is 1E, is going to be something times 1E. And the width of this rectangle here is 2, so the area is going to be something times 2. Well, what do I multiply by 1E to get 3E? 3. What do I multiply by 2 to get 6? 3. And if we did everything right, what do you think is going to happen with this number and this number? It worked here because they are the same thing, right? We get the same thing there, which means that the height of this rectangle is going to be 3. So now we can fill in the blanks. In this first parentheses here, what should we put? 10E plus 3. That's the height of the rectangles. And then in the second one here, E plus 2. So what's going on here, we're factoring something that we've done before, but we didn't have to have any hints this time. I gave you a hint before and told you what goes here. If I hadn't given this to you before today, before we knew the MA stuff, then you might have guessed that this was going to be 5 and 2. And if you tried 5 and 2 here, it wouldn't work out. Okay? Or you might have tried 10 and 1 and it would have worked out. But there's no guessing involved when we do it this way. So we figure out what M and A are based on the first and third term for M, multiply those together, and the middle term for A. We get our two numbers. We use those to fill in bottom left and top right areas. Then we factor the GCF. Now, it sounds like a lot of steps. Each step by itself isn't too bad, though. And the good news is you have your notes here. We're going to fill this out in our notes, so you're going to have that available to you when you take a test or a quiz. And so you should know what those steps are. You're never going to forget them because you've got your notes. All right, so let's do the same thing here. This one should go a little faster because we know what to do now, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in all the areas that I know. So what areas do I know so far? Yeah, I know the top left one is going to be what? 10f squared. And the bottom right one is 6. And the ones that I don't know are going to be the top right and bottom left. But we know that these two areas are going to add up to what? They're going to add up to 19f. All right, so those two are going to add up to 19f. Next thing we're going to do is we have to figure out what M and A are because we want to figure out what these two areas are going to be. So what is M going to be? How'd you get that, Aaron? Yeah, 10 times 6 is going to give us M, which is 60. It's not always going to be 60. It just happened that way in two problems in a row. What is A going to be? That is going to be 19 because that's the middle term, right? Okay, and the reason A is 19 is because we need these two areas here to add up to 19. So we're looking for two numbers now that multiply to get 60 and add to get 19. So those two numbers that are going to work here are going to be 4 and 15. Now, like I said last time, it really doesn't matter which one goes where. So I'll let you guys decide. Which one do you want to put here? 4 or 15? 15? Okay. So we'll put the 15 there, but it's not just 15, it's 15 what? 15F.
I switched mine.
And if you do it the other way, you're going to get the same answer. Kind of. I'll explain the difference in a minute. What's going to go here? Okay, that's going to be 4F. Now let's just look at the top row here. In the top row right here, what is the GCF? What's the biggest number that goes into 10 and 15? 5F. Good. So the GCF here is going to be 5F, which means that this area is 5F times something, and this area is 5F times something. What do I multiply by 5F to get 10F squared? 2, I hear somebody saying 2, but it's not 2, it's 2F. And what do I multiply by 5F to get 15F? Just 3, right? So that means that we should have a width of what here? What is the width of this rectangle? 2F. And what is the width of this rectangle? 3. Getting close. So down here now, in the bottom row, we're going to have a width of 2F here, so it's going to be something times 2F and something times 2F. What do I multiply by 2F to get 4F? Oh, I did something wrong here, didn't I? This shouldn't be a 2F. This should be something times 3 here. You guys all caught that, right? Yeah. I put 2F here instead of 3 because the width of this rectangle is 3, right? So this should be 3. What do I multiply by 3 to get 6? 2. Did we get it right? Yeah, we know we got it right if we get the same thing here as we got here. And we did, right? So what's the height of this rectangle going to be?
2.
That's 2. So I can write in my answer. What's going to go first here? Okay, that's going to be the height. It's 5F plus 2. And what's going to go here? 2F plus 3. Now, I want to make a quick comment here about this. I said earlier when we got the 4 and the 15 that it doesn't matter which one goes where. And that's true. We could have put the 4F here and we could have put the 15F here. If we had done that, then we would have had the 5F and the 2 instead of being on the side here. They would have been up top here. This would have been a 5F and this would have been a 2. And the 2F plus 3 would have been along the side here. So we would have gotten the same answer, except that this parentheses here and this parentheses here would have been flipped. And we would have gotten 2F plus 3 times 5F plus 2 instead. So it's the same thing, it's just a different order. All right, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. If you do flip them, you're going to get the same answer. It's just going to be in a different order. Before we go on to the last example, let's write down the steps that we're going to do. I'll give you about a minute or two to write these down. But these notes you will be allowed to use on your tests and quizzes. We will be taking a quiz tomorrow. The quiz tomorrow is just going to be MA. It's not going to involve factoring like this. But on the test or the quiz you take next week over this factoring, you'll be allowed to use these notes. So be sure you write them down carefully.
We use our notes on the phone.
On this problem here, what's the first thing we're going to do? So the first step that you wrote down says to do what? Determine M and A, right? So let's go ahead and do that first. What's M going to be? Okay, so we're going to multiply the first coefficient and the third coefficient together. We get M equals 8. What is A going to be? That's going to be 9 because that's the middle coefficient or the second coefficient. And what two numbers multiply to get 8 and add to get 9?
1 and 8.
1 and 8, right? So those are the two numbers that you're going to use for the areas of the bottom left and the top right. So second step says, oh, we already did the second step. That says find the numbers and multiply to M and add to A, right? Third step says what? Write the areas of each of the rectangles, right? What's the area of the first rectangle going to be? Top left. That is 4G squared. How about the second one?
2.
This one right here.
Oh, 8.
Top right. Okay, now, we actually have a choice here. And it doesn't matter which one you do. My guess is that some of you did 1G there and some of you did 8G there. Which one do you guys want to do?
8G.
All right, so we'll put the 8G there. If you put the 1G there, go ahead and finish it the way you did it. But your answer is just going to be flipped from what we got. It's still going to be right, though. So if we put the 8G here, what's going to go here? 1G. And what's the area of this bottom right rectangle? That's going to be 2. All right, so that's the third step. Fourth step says factor each row using the GCF. And we really only need to do one row. Because once we get that first row done, then the rest of it's just going to fall into place. So for this row right here, what is the GCF going to be?
4.
It's going to be 4. So it's going to be 4, but 4 what? 4G, right? Because we have a G in both of them. If you did it the other way, what was your GCF? So if you did it the other way, you're looking for the GCF of 4G squared and 1G. What's the GCF of those two? That's going to be 1G, right? So if you did it the other way, you're going to have a 1G out front. All right, we have the 4G here, so it's going to be 4G times something and 4G times something to get these two areas. What do we multiply by 4G to get 4G squared? 1G, right? So the width of this one's going to be 1G. What do we multiply by 4G to get 8G? 2. So the width of this one is going to be 2. Then we go down to the bottom here. Since the width of the rectangle up here is 1G, it's going to be the same here. So we're going to have something times 1G and something times 2, because the width of this rectangle is 2. What do I multiply by 1G to get 1G? 1. What do I multiply by 2 to get 2? It's a pretty easy one, right? So what's the height of this rectangle going to be? 1. And so filling in our blanks then, what do we get for the first one? 4G plus 1. And the second one? 1G plus 2. Notice I left the 1 off of the G here. It's okay if you put it there. I'm going to leave it off because it's a little bit simpler to not have it. If you did it the other way, if you put the 1G here in the top right and you put the 8G here in the bottom left, then your first factor is going to be G plus 2, and your second one is going to be 4G plus 1. So your answer would look like this. How many people had that?